I would like to call the April 26th, 2023 City Council. Yeah. City Council, regular meeting to order. Will everyone please stand and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, liberty and justice. Will the clerk please call the roll?
Mr. Carey,
Present.
Mr. Chilson,
Present.
Ms. Hutchings. Present. Mr. Nelson,
Present.
Ms. Parker. Ms. Wackler
She has an excused absence.
and Mr. Cassidy.
Present.
You have a quorum.
Thank you. Next item on the agenda is the approval of the agenda and consent agenda. May I have a motion to approve the agenda and consent agenda? Ms. Hutchings,
I'll make a motion to approve the agenda and consent agenda.
may I have a second?
I'll second.
Thank you, Mr. Chilson. Are there any changes to the agenda, consent agenda? Vice Mayor Parker.
Thank you, Mayor Whitney. I would move to amend the agenda to add lay down resolution 2023-028. Commending Stephanie Queen for her years of service. They had told you as city manager to the city of Soldotna, introduced by the mayor, council members Parker, Chilson, Hutchings, and Nelson to the agenda as new item business 8A3.
Are there any objections to adding resolution 2023-028 to the agenda? Seeing none, we will add that to the agenda. Would the clerk please read the consent agenda?
April 12th, 2023, council meeting minutes. Resolution 2023-026, commending Sergeant Truesdale for being named Alaska Association of Secondary Schools Principal, Region 3 Principal of the Year for 2023, sponsored by the mayor, Mr. Carey, Ms. Hutchings, and Ms. Parker. Resolution 2023-027, commending Elizabeth Kwame for being named the National Outstanding Assistant Principal for 2023 by the Alaska Association of Elementary Schools Principals, sponsored by the mayor, Mr. Carey, Ms. Hutchings, and Ms. Parker. Action Memorandum 2023-009, appointing Kyle Cornelis, Acting City Manager. That is your consent agenda.
Thank you. Are there any public comments on any item just read by the clerk? For those participating through Zoom, please raise your hand if you would like to comment. App users by pressing the raise your hand button, and phone participants by dialing *9 on your telephone. Is there anyone here in the council chambers wishing to speak on any of the items just read by the clerk? Seeing and hearing none, we'll take a look at Zoom. And I see no hands raised on Zoom. Having no one wishing to speak, the approval of the agenda and consent agenda is back before the council. Are there any council objections to approving the agenda and consent agenda? Hearing none, the agenda and consent agenda are approved. Would Council Member Carey please read the resolution 2023-026 into the record? And would Principal Sarge Truesdale please step forward? Now for these two teachers, principals and assistant principals, I'm not sure which one I feel the most sorry for. I have two grandchildren in both schools. Mr. Carey.
43 years ago, when Soldotna High School was open, those of us who were in the original staff, and community, we look forward to today such as today. 43 years ago, when Soldotna High School was open, those of us who were on the original staff and the community look forward to days like today. because we knew the fine people that would be coming through that school and would serve all units of the school. Resolution number 2023-026 of the city of Soldotna, commending Sergeant Truesdale for being named the Alaska Association of Secondary School Principals 3-3 Principal of the Year 2023. Whereas Mr. Truesdale has served as principal of Soldotna High School since the spring of 2021. And whereas Sarge is a true son of Soldotna, having attended 5 different Kenai Peninsula Borough School District schools and graduated from Skyview High School. And whereas he has been involved in the educational career field since 1998, first as a teacher and coach. And whereas in 2007, Mr. Truesdale was selected as the assistant principal at Soldotna Middle School and became the school principal in 2011. And whereas Sergeant Truesdale, this award is part, whereas Sergeant received this award in part through nomination by students, parents, district staff, and peers. And whereas Mr. Truesdale was selected to receive this honor out of a peer group that included principals in the Kenai Peninsula Borough School District, Grace Christian School, Anchorage Christian Schools, and the Palmer, Wasilla, Houston, Kodiak, and Reddington area schools. Now therefore, be it resolved by the City Council of the City of Soldotna, Alaska, that the Soldotna City Council does hereby extend congratulations to Sergeant Truesdale for being selected as the recipient of this distinguished award from the AAFSC. This resolution was adopted by the City Council on this 26th day of April, 2023. We did.
Twenty-three 027, and it's a resolution commending Elizabeth Whammy for being the National Outstanding Assistant Principal for 2023 by the Alaska Association of the Elementary School Principals. Please step forward. Whereas Ms. Whammy, yeah, I'm terrible on names, demonstrated exceptional leadership and displayed high standards in her role as Assistant Principal for K Beach Elementary. And whereas Elizabeth is known for being a leader in her school community, having served on the Kenai Peninsula Borough PBIS leadership team and the effective literacy team, as well as co-facilitating the student leadership team at K Beach Elementary. Whereas the National Outstanding Assistant Principal Award honors assistant principals who make stellar contributions to their learning communities and to call attention to the fundamental importance of the assistant principal. Whereas the city of Soldotna and surrounding communities are made better by the presence of influence and of excellent educators such as Elizabeth. Now therefore be resolved by the City Council of the City of Soldotna, Alaska, that the Soldotna City Council does hereby extend congratulations to Elizabeth Whammy for being selected as the recipient of the Distinguished Award from the Alaska Association of Elementary School Principals. Section 2, the resolution shall become effective immediately upon its adoption and adopted by the City Council this 26th day of April, 2023. Congratulations. And like I said, I have 2 grandchildren in your school. They probably spend more time in your office. And here's the official sign document. And thank you very much. Thank you for everything you do for our kids. All right, the next item on the agenda is presentations with prior notice, and I will introduce Chief Meeks, who is here to present Officer Bauer with the Lifesaver Award.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. One of the highest honors that you can receive as a police officer in our community is the saving of the life of another. And sometimes we get put in those situations where you show up and things are really at their worst. On February 8th of this year at 4:30 in the morning, Officer Bauer had arrived over at Soldotna Creek Park and found a subject who was overdosed. He was not breathing. He did not have a pulse, pretty much dead by clinical standards. During that time, Officer Bauer started CPR with the help of a nearby person that was there and continued CPR until our medics arrived, transported the person to the hospital. 3 hours after going to the hospital, person walked out of the hospital. So, Officer Bauer, if you'd join me, please. So today I'd like to honor Officer Bauer and his life-saving skills that day. So his life-saving techniques of that day for the life of another person.
Congratulations and thank you for what you do for our city. Looking around at the police officers that are here, the only one I can really relate to is the lieutenant. When I started in police work back in 1970, we had to be clean shaven. And that was the only time I have not had a mustache from when I could grow one. And right now I've had this beard since 1981. And none of my grandchildren have ever seen me without hair on my face. So things have changed, and I'm glad. So moving on to the next item is public comments and presentations. Are there any members of the public who would like to speak on any item not appearing on the agenda? For those participating through Zoom, please raise your hand if you would like to comment. App users by pressing the raise your hand button, and phone participants by dialing *9 on your telephone. Is there anyone here in the chamber who would like to speak on any item not appearing on the agenda? Seeing none, take a look at Zoom. And do you see any hands raised? And so we will now move on to the next agenda item, which is Assembly and Legislative Report. Are there any representatives from the borough or the state in attendance who would like to speak? I see none here in the chambers. Do we have any on Zoom that you see? Okay, moving on to the next item agenda is public hearings. Testimony limited to 3 minutes per speaker. The first one is ordinance 2023-009, amending chapter 2.28 of the Soldotna Municipal Code, providing updates to the personnel code and authorizing programs from the recruitment and retention strategy, introduced by the city manager. May I have a motion to enact?
Mayor
Vice
Whit-
Mayor Parker.
Thank you. I would move to introduce ordinance 2023-009, amending chapter 2.28 of the Soldotna Municipal Code.
May I have a second, please?
Second.
Thank you, Mr. Carey. Report from the administration.
Thank you, Mayor Whitney. This ordinance provides authorizing language for several of the recruitment and retention strategies that were previously discussed and approved as part of that strategy. So, for example, there's new language in the code that is proposed to authorize the hiring bonuses, relocation assistance, and employee referral programs to assist with our recruitment efforts, as well as some of the retention-focused efforts such as paid parental leave and use of administrative leave for salaried employees. And in addition, HR Manager O'Regan and myself, we had been keeping notes about this section of code, and over the years made note of things that were maybe not as clear as they could have been, or things that we wanted to propose minor amendments to, and this ordinance incorporates some of those recommendations as well. It's a very long ordinance. This ends up amending about half of the sections in our chapter 2.28, which is our personnel code. And so the memo that's in the packet, starting on page 19, does a deeper dive than we usually do in terms of explaining those changes. So the sectional analysis in the memo goes through each of those sections and provides additional explanation and clarification about the proposed amendments. In addition, we had the attorneys provide some additional suggested edits that are, I would say, technical and minor in nature, but those have been drafted and are available for you. If someone were interested in making that motion, we would appreciate it. But other than that, I'll conclude my report and I'm happy to answer any questions.
Thank you. Are there any members of the public who wish to speak on this item? For those participating through Zoom, please raise your hand if you would like to comment. App users by pressing the raise your hand button, and phone participants by dialing *9 on your telephone. Is there anyone here in the chambers wishing to speak on ordinance 2023-09? Seeing none, do we have any hands raised on Zoom? All right, having no one wishing to speak, the item is back before the council. Vice Mayor Parker.
Thank you, Mayor Whitney. As the city manager noted, this is consistent with the discussions that we've had, the work session we had, looking at ways to increase our recruitment and retention. And what is proposed is consistent with that. The city attorney did do a review and has suggested about a half dozen minor amendments, and I would move that we amend the ordinance to incorporate each of these recommendations from our legal counsel. And if there is a second, I would then ask the city manager to speak to each of these.
Thank you, Mr. Carey. Are you proposing to make it one amendment for all these changes? Or each
Yes,
one individually?
yes. And as after the city manager has had the opportunity to discuss each of these, if there is one item in particular which council members feel should be withdrawn, we could withdraw that and vote on that separately. But at this point, I'm recommending that we take them in a lump.
Do each of the council members have a copy of that memorandum, those changes? Mr. Nelson, do you?
Stand by here, Mayor. I was just going to double check my email to see if I had a copy of that, and I don't believe I do. If the clerk can send that my way, I'd appreciate it.
We'll go to the city manager for her report on it.
Thank you, Mayor Whitney. Appreciate the opportunity to do some additional edits if it's the council's will to authorize them. These are recommended by the attorney. They're minor in nature and not intended to change substantively what was already proposed, but as additional language to help clarify. Two of the sections relate to probation, and we do an initial 6 months probationary period for new employees. The code was amended to further clarify that an employee would serve in a probationary period if they also rehire into a different position or promote within the organization. And so this clarifies that probationary period applies after the initial hire or transfer or promotion into a new position. Additionally, it deals with holidays, and we've got two sections of code that reference holiday pay for employees. These edits from the attorney are intended to further clarify that we make a distinction between pay when a holiday falls on an employee's day off versus when they're actually working that holiday. So these two instances, it's referencing holiday pay and how it applies if it is an employee's day off and they don't work that day. So that was just an additional clarification. Under benefit status, we currently have code language that says employees on leave of absence do not receive health or life insurance benefits. We had originally proposed the language unless authorized by the city manager. That would give us, for example, the opportunity to continue paying those benefits. For example, if an employee is on extended family medical leave. And the attorneys recommended the additional language that they would not be received those in benefits unless authorized by the city manager or required under SMC 228-130-0. And again, that's a section of code that already references benefit status for employees on family medical leave. The final proposed amendment is shown as bullet point G, and this deals with overtime. And again, we have a 2-hour callback essentially in our code where employees who have left work their shift, if they return back to the workplace, they're entitled to a minimum of 2 hours of callback. And the attorney, as they do, they like to clarify things. The language they're suggesting doesn't change that, but it clarifies that it's for overtime eligible employees who are called back to the job site after having departed the job site to perform work not previously scheduled. So again, not intended to change the law. This comes from federal law. But might make it more clear as in terms of our employees or our leadership team, how that standard applies. The last requested amendment is due to the effective date. So originally, this ordinance was drafted as we do with most ordinances, and it stated that it would be effective immediately. We realized in discussion earlier today that some of the changes will apply. They will change how we calculate overtime pay. And for that reason, it would be helpful to have the effective date coincide with the first date of the next pay period. So we're requesting that section 15 of the ordinance be amended so that the ordinance becomes effective May 1st, which is Monday of next week. And that's the first day of a new pay period. That's going to help out our finance department quite a bit. And thank you. That concludes my report.
Are there any questions or comments from the council to the city manager regarding these changes? Mr. Joseph?
Just one question pertaining to the minimum overtime. So with the language change at the end of this section of language talking about workers contacted at home shall be paid a minimum of 1 hour straight time per incident. That relates to needs for telephone advice or dispatch of other employees. I'm trying to think about how this would apply for like an IT perspective or maybe HVAC employees that are able to remote in and do their stuff through like their tablets where they're not necessarily being contacted for telephone advice or dispatching employees, but just my own role as an IT manager, like there might be instances where I check my email at night, no one is contacting me, but I see like a system alert or something that, oh, this requires urgent attention. And I have to remote in and use our systems remotely to correct an issue or something that needs to be fixed before business hours the next day.
Sure. Councilmember Chilson through the mayor. We have other existing code language that specifies that employees, if they're overtime eligible employees, they'll receive overtime for any time worked in excess of their normal scheduled work hours in a day and in excess of 40 hours in a week. And
They
the
don't
40
get that 1 hour minimum though.
how we typically apply that is that they track their time. They track their real time in 15-minute increments. So this language, as we were thinking through scenarios of when that might have applied, it was curious to me why it specifically said that it would be paid as straight time, because it conflicts potentially with other sections of our code that says if it's outside of your normal scheduled work hours, it would be paid as overtime. And the minimum 1 hour call out is, I don't think is best practice or consistent for people who might be working. An example of this might be our assistant parks director who takes a call and someone says, you know, this person didn't show up for work this morning. Who should I call? And they say, bring in so-and-so. That might be something that rather than giving them an hour of work for that time, we would have them track it in 15 minutes and make sure that it was paid in accordance with our overtime regulations generally.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions, comments from the council? Then the amendment is before us right now, the amendment to ordinance 2023-009. Would you roll call vote, please, on the amendment?
Carrie,
Yes.
Nelson,
Yes.
Chilson,
Yes.
Parker,
Yes.
Hutchings,
Yes.
Cassidy.
Yes.
You have 5 yes votes.
The amendment to ordinance 2023-009 is passed on a 5-0 vote. The main motion is now before you. Any further discussion on the ordinance? Go ahead, Mr. Chilson.
I would just like to thank staff for the language specific to increasing protections for discrimination and just generally efforts to make our city more inclusive and welcoming for all employees that would like to work here. So I appreciate that. Thank you.
Any other comments? Vice Mayor Parker.
Yes, as Councilmember Chilson said, I want to thank the administration for bringing this forward. There has been a lot of time and effort put into this. I hope that going forward that it is helpful as we go through recruitment and retention, and that it helps us retain the wonderful employees that we have here at the city.
Anything else? Seeing none, we'll call for the roll.
Chilson,
Yes.
Parker,
Yes.
Hutchings,
Yes.
Nelson,
Yes.
Harry,
Yes.
Cassidy.
Yes.
You have 5 yes votes.
Ordinance 2023-009 passes on a 5-0 vote with 1 absent. Moving on to the next agenda item is ordinance 2023-010, increasing estimated revenues and appropriations by $10,000 in the general fund for a donation received from Debbie McCarthy, introduced by the city manager. May I have a motion to enact?
I move the adoption of enactment of ordinance 2023-010.
Thank you, Mr. Carey. May I have a second? Thank you, Ms. Hutchings. Report from the administration.
Thank you, Mayor Whitney. I'd like to invite City Librarian Rachel Nash to provide our report.
Thank you. So yes, we received a very generous donation from Debbie McCarthy, and these family workstations are, I brought a picture, these great pieces of furniture that provide a space for a caregiver to sit with a computer, which we will have a computer available there, and then a play space for a young child to be safe while they work. And what we have identified in the library is a need for something like that. It's actually been a need for years. Last year, we found this company that produces this furniture, and we had tried to get a grant for it. We weren't successful, so we were very excited to be able to get it this year, and the company has been able to work with us to get 2 units. So yeah, we're excited for that, and I'm happy to answer any questions.
Thank you. Are there any members of the public who wish to speak on this item? For those participating through Zoom, please raise your hand if you would like to comment. App users by pressing the raise your hand button, and phone participants by dialing *9 on your telephone. Is there anyone here in the council chambers wishing to speak on ordinance 2023-010? Seeing and hearing none, do we have any on Zoom? And we have none on Zoom. Having no one wishing to speak, the item is back before the council. Are there any council comments, questions? Vice Mayor Parker.
I would just like to say thank you to Ms. McCarthy for the donation to allow the library to be able to install these stations.
And I voiced the same thing. Thank you very much. I believe that's probably the largest donation the library's ever seen. So thank you very much, Ms. McCarthy. Any other comments or questions? Seeing none, I'll call for the vote.
Parker,
Yes.
Hutchings,
Yes.
Nelson,
Yes.
Harry,
Yes.
Chilson,
Yes.
Cassidy.
Yes.
You have 5 yes votes.
Ordinance 2023-010 passes on a 5-0 vote with 1 absent. Next item on the agenda is ordinance 2023-011, increasing estimated revenues and appropriations by $500 in the general fund for a donation received from the Soldotna Elks Lodge 2706 for the 2023 Peninsula River Skate Figure Skating Competition, introduced by the city manager. May I have a motion to enact? Ms. Hutchings.
I'll make a motion to enact ordinance 2023-011, increasing estimated revenues and appropriations by $500 in the general fund for a donation received from the Soldotna Elks Lodge 2706 for the 2023 Peninsula River Skate Figure Skating Competition.
Second.
Thank you, Vice Mayor Parker. Report from the administration.
Thank you, Mayor Whitney. There's a memo in the packet from Andrew Carmichael, our Parks and Rec Director. Every year we host this very large skating competition, more than 140 skaters, and it's a lot of extra staff time, a lot of extra volunteer time, and we appreciate the support from the Elks. Their $500 donation was used for materials and supplies, and that concludes my report.
Thank you. Are there any members of the public who wish to speak on this item? For those participating through Zoom, please raise your hand if you would like to comment. App users by pressing the raise your hand button, and phone participants by dialing *9 on your telephone. Is there anyone here in the audience wishing to speak on ordinance 2023-010? Seeing none, we'll ask for Zoom. Do we have anyone on Zoom? Thank you. Having no one wishing to speak, the item is back before the council. Are there any council comments? Mr. Carey.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'd just like to thank the Soldotna Elks. They do a great deal for our community throughout the year, and this is just another addition. Thank you.
Any other question or any questions or comments? Mr. Cassidy.
I second Mr. Carey's comments. I know just from experience in our school that the Elks do, like he said, a lot for our community, and just from past agendas that I've seen, they really do a lot. So thanks to them.
Here in about 5 years, I'll give you an application. Okay, we'll call for the roll. Roll call vote.
Hutchings,
Yes.
Nelson,
Yes.
Harry.
Yes.
Chilson,
Yes.
Parker,
Yes.
Cassidy.
Yes.
You have 5 yes votes.
Ordinance 2023-011 passes on a 5-0 vote with 1 absent. Moving on to the next item on the agenda is ordinance 2023-012, increasing estimated revenues and appropriations by $78,565 in the COVID-19 Relief Special Revenue Fund by accepting grant funds provided by the State of Alaska Department of Health, introduced by the city manager. May I have a motion to enact? Vice Mayor Parker.
Thank you, Mayor Whitney. I move to enact ordinance 2023-012, increasing estimated revenues and appropriations by $78,565,000 in the COVID-19 Relief Special Revenue Fund.
May I have a second, please?
I'll
Thank you, Ms.
second.
Hutchings. I'll report from the administration.
Thank you, Mayor Whitney. The city had previously received the first installment of this grant funding program. It's federal funding that came through the State of Alaska Department of Health. And it came through the COVID era, but it's specific to trying to achieve and support healthy outcomes in communities. The first round of funding we received was just under 52,000, and we used that for our mobile recreation program. So that was the trailer, the additional ice skates, the additional skating aids, and the kind of wrapping and branding of that trailer so that we have a really deployable parks in a box almost that can be rented out or moved around to different facilities. So we're near wrapping up that program. We've got the pieces of that. We're just working, I think, on the finishing wrap on that trailer when they announced an additional round of funding. So this time it's a formula. It's calculated per community, and the city is eligible for $565 this round of funding. Laura Reiner, the assistant to the city manager, coordinated with our Parks Department, and the recommendation is to use these funds to further expand that program by getting additional summer recreation items that can be put in the trailer, as well as additional ice skates that can be used both at the sports center and offsite, such as Arc Lake and Soldotna Creek Park, as well as the purchase of adaptive skating equipment for skaters with disabilities or mobility challenges. She had pre-vetted these proposed uses with the granting agency, and they are all deemed eligible, and we recommend approval. And that concludes my report.
Thank you for your report. Are there any members of the public who wish to speak on this item? For those participating through Zoom, please raise your hand if you would like to comment. App users by pressing the raise your hand button, and phone participants by dialing *9 on your telephone. Is there anyone here in the audience wishing to speak on ordinance 2023-012? Seeing none, do we have anyone on Zoom? Thank you. Having no one wishing to speak, the item is back before the council. Any council comments or questions? Seeing none, I'll call for the. Mr. Chilson.
No worries. I just wanted to thank staff for their work on continuing to find new opportunities to get our community out and active outdoors, and providing means for those that may not often have the ability to use equipment like this out in our parks. One thing that caught my interest on this, though, is the purchase of a portable pump track. And I know we have the chair of the Silteshi board here with us in attendance, and that's development of a pump track has been something that organization has been interested in for some time. And I think that we're fortunate that we've had a really good working relationship between the city and Silteshi over the years. And with this equipment, I would love to see maybe some further collaboration with our Parks Department, Silteshi, and maybe eventually incorporating that into the Silteshi bike program for youth in the summer. There's a lot of cool opportunity for collaboration with the city there. So, thank you.
Any other council comments? Seeing none, call for the vote.
Nelson,
Yes.
Carrie,
Yes.
Chilson,
Yes.
Parker,
Yes.
Hutchings,
Yes.
Cassidy.
Yes.
You have 5 yes votes.
Thank you. Ordinance 2023-012 passes on a 5-0 vote with 1 absent. Next item on the agenda is ordinance 2023-013, increasing estimated revenues and appropriations by $132,794.44 in the general fund and $132,794.44 in the debt service fund for debt service on the field house general obligation bonds, introduced by the city manager. May I have a motion to enact? Mr. Carey,
I move the adoption of ordinance 2023-013.
may I have a second, please? Thank you, Ms. Hutchings. A report from the administration.
Here, Mayor Whitney, the FY 24 and 25 biennial budget that we presented at the work session earlier this week includes debt service payments for those fiscal years, but one payment is due in the current fiscal year on the initial $10 million of general obligation debt that we've already been granted for the Fieldhouse project. And this would provide supplemental funding in the current fiscal year to be able to make that first debt payment. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any members of the public who wish to speak on this item? For those participating through Zoom, please raise your hand if you would like to comment. App users by pressing the raise your hand button, and phone participants by dialing *9 on your telephone. Is there anyone here in the audience and the council wishing to speak on ordinance 2023-013? Seeing and hearing none, we'll look at Zoom. Do we have any Zoom hands? Okay, moving on. Having no one wishing to speak, the item is back before the council. Are there any council comments? Mr. Chilson, you haven't moved, so we'll call for the vote now.
Nelson,
Yes.
Carrie.
Yes.
Chilson,
Yes.
Parker,
Yes.
Hutchings,
Yes.
Cassidy.
Yes.
You have 5 yes votes.
Ordinance 2023-013 passes on a 5-0 vote with 1 absent. Next item on the agenda is new business. And under new business, we have lay down resolution 2023-028. A resolution commending Stephanie Queen for her years of service as city manager for the city of Soldotna. Whereas Stephanie Queen began her employment with the city of Soldotna as a city planner in 2008. Whereas Stephanie demonstrated superior leadership and a deep devotion to the community by accepting the position of city manager in 2018. And whereas Stephanie spent countless hours and invested herself fully in support of ethical and efficient city operations. And whereas Stephanie left an indelible and impactful mark upon the culture of the city by expanding the Soldotna Creek Park, creating the storefront improvement program, implementing Frozen River Fest, overseeing Levitt AMP partnership with the Soldotna Chamber of Commerce, spearheading the Soldotna Fieldhouse project, establishing the Soldotna Community Memorial Park, Three Friends Dog Park, securing a new airport building, and securing the River Development Grant. And there's a whole bunch of other stuff she's also done that have been great. Whereas there are no platitudes, words of thanks, or affirmations which can repay the city deep debt to her. And whereas the Soldotna City Council and Mayor wish to express their gratitude and appreciation to Stephanie for these dedicated years of service and outstanding leadership to the city of Soldotna. Now therefore be it resolved by the City Council of the City of Soldotna, Alaska, that the Soldotna City Council commends Stephanie Queen for her years of dedicated service to the city of Soldotna and local community. That the Soldotna City Council hereby extends its sincere thanks and appreciation to Stephanie Queen for her commitment to the city and community and wishes her good health, success, and prosperity in the future. This resolution shall become effective immediately upon its adoption. May I have a motion to approve?
So move.
Thank you, Vice Mayor Parker. May I have a second? Thank you. Is there anyone in the public, we'll now open the public hearing. Is there anyone in the audience who wish to speak on this resolution 2023-028? Okay. Do we have any hands raised on Zoom? Okay. Now this item was back before the council. Do we have any council comments? Vice Mayor Parker, did you have some?
I'll say it correctly.
Ah, okay.
Excluding that Stephanie and the administration did with administering the 10 million plus in COVID monies. And booklet that was put together by the city of Soldotna, showing how those funds were distributed, served as a model to other communities around Alaska. And the work that Stephanie and her team have done, like I say, communities around the state are looking at Soldotna and what she's done and going, yay.
And as I said, there was many things that have been done that we just can't name them all. Done an absolutely outstanding and terrific job. He stepped in at the time when it was needed and just brought us into the future. So we'll call for the vote.
Nelson,
Yes.
Carrie,
Yes,
Chilson,
Yes.
Parker,
Reluctantly, yes.
Hutchings,
Yes.
Cassidy.
Absolutely.
You have 5 yes votes.
Motion passes. Resolution 2023-028 passes on a 5-0 vote. Mr. Nelson, I kind of missed you, forgot to look up. Did you have anything you wanted to add?
Nothing I think that hasn't been said already. So congratulations to Stephanie and thank you.
Now, to go along with this, the city council, all the members took up a collection and all contributed to a small gift for the city manager. They even entrusted me with the job of finding a gift. So after many, many suggestions, anything from a case of tequila, including the worm, to a paid, all expense paid trip for two for a weekend in Nikiski. I had quite a chore here. So knowing that Stephanie's going to have a lot of free time on her hands now, my project moved on to finding the most dust collecting gift I could find. So she would have something to do every day by dusting it. So if you'll excuse me for a moment. I want you to know this is another superb job of my gift wrapping. So,
The trash bag. Clean up coming.
I warn you now, do not drop this on your foot. Very expensive paper.
Oh, that's beautiful. Thank you. Thank you.
Read it
Um,
if you can.
A whale of a job presented to City Manager Stephanie Queen, many years of outstanding leadership and dedicated service to the city of Soldotna, presented by the mayor. Thank you.
No more mumble meetings. What I kind of, hopefully we could all do is, stand around this green here and have a picture taken of her and the council. Not sure how we're gonna get Dan in here, but.
I'll come back and get one with Stephanie myself here on Friday. How about that?
How do we want to do
right above us.
Mr. Nelson, you need to look down. Yeah, right there, right there.
Right, I got a 17, so I think we're good.
The other thing I can say about this, it's, my cat absolutely loved this, sitting up on the counter, and she just loved rubbing up against it. So she's gonna miss it, and I may have to go out and get another one. All right, what else do we have on this agenda? Gotta find my spot here. Okay, here we go. Mayor and council reports, mayor's report and comments. Actually, I have nothing more to say. It's been an interesting evening. I think I've said enough already. So we'll just move right on to city manager's report, your final report.
I didn't think I was going to be able to say anything, but I think I can say something. The first thing was, thank you for the resolution. Nobody asked me to review it. If they had, I would have suggested some edits. To further explain that all of these great things that happened, I was one of many people involved. So I have gratitude to have been a part of this team, this bigger team that was able to achieve such good things. And I leave with sadness, but excitement for the city's future. And I'll introduce my family. Unless they want to introduce themselves.
Maybe give your dad that job.
Okay, my dad Steve's here and my older brother Chris and his wife Larissa and my daughter Brian, who's going to be a freshman next year at SoHi, and my husband Jamie and my son Garrett, who's going to be a 7th grader next year. And I'll send a special shout out to Jamie because I don't know if you guys know, occasionally this is a very stressful job. And he really, he really earned, a portion of the success that I've had by supporting me and being able to do this job. When I started, both of my kids were in elementary school and they've sacrificed quite a bit. And I thank them for that, as well as thanking you for the opportunity. It's a happy send off and I really appreciate it and I'm grateful. Thank you.
Moving on to the next item on the agenda is public comments. Members of the public will have 3 minutes to comment. Is there anyone from the public who wishes to comment? For those participating through Zoom, please raise your hand if you would like to comment. App users by pressing the raise your hand button, and phone participants by dialing *9 on your telephone. Anyone here in the chamber wishing to make any comments? Seeing and hearing none, we'll move to Zoom. Do we have any hands raised on Zoom? Okay. Moving on to the next item on the agenda is council comments. And tonight we'll start with Mr. Carey.
I appreciate very much the 2 work sessions that we've had this week to go through the budget. It was very helpful and very thorough. And again, it's just another example of the great job that our managers done as well as the staff in preparing this city to provide service to our community and to look forward and provide more. I thank you and all that work with the city.
Mr. Cassidy.
Okay. All right, so. Well, a lot has happened at SoHi recently. I'm really grateful for Principal Truesdale. I've been with him, well, I was with him both years at Skyview, 7th and 8th grade. And then the same year I became a freshman, he went over to SoHi, or I was at Skyview, sorry. So I'll have him for 6 years. It's going to be great. He really does do a good job. He's to our school just like you were to and still are and going to be to the city. Your contributions, though I haven't been present for many of them, have been huge through direct and indirect actions. So thank you for your service. In terms of what the school's doing, we had prom 2 weekends ago. It was very successful. We raised, I think it was $9,500. It was quite a lot of money. But that's because not only our students, but students from a few from Homer and a bunch from Kenai attend. And that'll pass it around if, if it's on different nights. We recently had our Sherlock Holmes play. I think they did very well. I'm not involved whatsoever in the drama community in our school, but from what I've heard, they've done well. As for sports, our softball and baseball teams just had their first game. I think it was yesterday. I haven't heard about the baseball team, but I know the girls team junior varsity won their game, and then the varsity, they were close, but they didn't make it. So hopefully next time. And for track, we have a meet this weekend, and we've had several meets. I apologize for my inadequacy in bringing you these things. I've been in physical therapy for the last few weeks, so I haven't really been connected to the sports communities. So hopefully in the future, I'll be able to bring you guys more information. And soccer is now finally practicing on our field. It's clear and they can make a 90-degree turn without slipping and falling. So it's really great for them. I think the biggest thing was today we had the student council. I don't know what it was called. It was a collaborative meeting between the, for us, it was most of our student council, but it was student councils from around the district. We even had Vosneska there, and shoot, I forget the names of the other ones, but there was I think there was like 8 schools that attended, so there was a lot. And the purpose of this meeting was to not only educate us as future leaders, but to determine who among the students was going to be on borough positions. So we elected several representatives, I think 3 from our own school, from SoHi. Some of them ran unopposed, so I don't know if that really counts. But we did get a lot of representatives in various positions, including our the borough. Was it my friend Scott made it on the English Language Arts committee? I'm not exactly sure what it was called. I, because of this role, did not apply for any of those positions. But it was a really good opportunity for us to get to know kids from other schools and learn about their needs. Particularly interesting was the Vosneska representatives. One of them was elected to the small schools committee. I'm sure you're all aware, but some of the schools out in the old believer towns and just the communities that are separated from our own are they're not as privileged as we are. The Vosneska representative that was elected explained that their school has been degrading for the last, I think, 30 years. Several cats have found homes in the foundation, and they just recently, through a big group of the community, were able to erect a building about half the size of the gym that serves as their gym. And for any sports, they all have to go to Homer. So hopefully with her on the school board, big changes will be made. And I know that actions have been made at the city level and at the borough level and so on to address these things. Other than that, it was just a good experience. I was talked at by the Kenai mayor and vice mayor. And I I saw the city council on there on the agenda. I was like, oh, I'm gonna know these people. And then it said Mayor, I don't even remember his name. Yeah, Gabriel. And I thought, oh man, never mind. But we were also talked to by Superintendent Holland and Borough Mayor Machicki. So it was a all around good experience. And I hope to continue advancing our school and advancing our community through our school. Thank you.
I certainly hope in your career of following around behind the principal at SoHi, it hasn't been in his office. Especially when he was vice principal and was in charge of discipline. So. Yeah. Ms. Hutchings.
Well, I would like to commend Stephanie as well. I've worked with her for many years and have appreciated everything she's done. I am going to miss her. I will not cry, I promise, Lisa. So thank you. And I know you're going to love all the new things that you're going to go out and do. And I understand you're on the hospital board, which is a huge commitment. So thank you for that. I'd like to also thank all of our educators and law enforcement that were here this evening. It's wonderful to see smiling faces in this room because sometimes we don't. So that was really nice. And then I'd like to make a little comment about what Kyle and I did today. We signed the final paperwork to transfer the Kenai Peninsula Community Care Center in Kenai to the Boys and Girls Club. All the documents are signed, so that's a great asset for the Boys and Girls Club, and I'm happy that I could be part of it. So that's all for me.
Mr. Nelson.
I'll just add my congratulations to Stephanie. I apologize I couldn't be here for your last meeting, but you know, yeah, you are part of a team, and certainly there's a lot of people behind you. But I think most people don't realize just how difficult, including myself, how difficult the city manager job is, and all the things you have to touch. So I've looked forward, very much appreciated the time that I've known you, which has been many years now. A couple positions ago for you, I think, was when we first started working together. I hope our paths keep crossing. So congratulations.
Mr. Cholson.
Thank you. I'd also like to add my comments about Stephanie leaving. Stephanie, I would like to thank you for the exceptional professionalism you've demonstrated through your tenure as a city manager for the city of Soldotna. We have been extraordinarily fortunate to have you for the city and all the great things that you've been able to do with that capacity. I think your ability to serve as a leader has been remarkable, and I think that's represented by the team that you've built around you when we look at all the employees of the city and all they're able to contribute. I would say that you are leaving the city in good hands. The employees here, I think, have been able to grow into the roles that they serve because of the support that you've been able to offer. It's always struck me in my time here on council, whenever we're reviewing budgets or policies that you're bringing forth, I've never seen anyone in a managerial role that demonstrates caring about the employees that they oversee to the degree that you do. I think that has been remarkable. And I think that caring for the employees to the level that you have has fostered that level of teamwork in the city. And I believe that you should be able to rest easy at this point, knowing that you're leaving a very capable team behind. The city's in great hands. I'd like to thank Kyle and all the other administrators that are going to be stepping up over the next few weeks to kind of fill in the gaps until we get our next city manager in. And she certainly has big shoes to fill. And I think that I think you've done exceptional work. So thank you.
Vice Mayor Parker.
Thank you, Mayor Whitney. Yesterday, late morning, I was able to go and speak with a SoHi business math class, which Noble was part of. They had extended an invitation to us to come and talk, and I had a great time. Was able to provide some information, answer questions, so it wasn't it wasn't just talking at them, but we did have dialogue and I very much like that. And I hope that there's more opportunities like that in the future. I want to thank Stephanie for taking my phone call 5 years ago and saying, yes, she would step in on an interim basis, and then applying for the job and taking it. And I will say, Stephanie, I will see you on the golf course.
Moving on to the next agenda item, executive session. There is no reason for an executive session tonight. Just one last comment. Stephanie has been kind of a saint because she's had to put up with me for about 10 years now, both on the Planning and Zoning Commission, on the City Council, and as mayor. So good luck. Have fun. You deserve the fun. So meeting announcements. May 3rd, 2023, Planning and Zoning Commission meeting, 5:30 PM. May 4th, 2023, Parks and Recreation Advisory Board meeting, 5:30 PM. And May 10th, 2023, City Council meeting at 6 PM. And that will be the first reading on the budget for next year. And having no further business before us, we are adjourned.